Hi everyone, and welcome to Living the Creative Life. I'm your host Linda Peterson, and I am so excited that you are joining me today. I'm very excited about this particular show. Are wedding bells in your future? Are you the bride? Are you the mother of the bride? Well, I'm the mother of the groom, and today's show is dedicated to all of you celebrating a wedding in your family, bringing you simple yet elegant wedding ideas. You're going to love them, and I know that your pocketbook is going to love them too. The first project I'm going to share with you is a guest table ensemble. It's an ensemble of 3 different projects. Then I'm going to show you how to create a beautiful centerpiece using magnolia flowers and candles. And to add just a little something to your wedding day fashion, I'm going to share with you how to create a pair of vintage inspired drop dangle earrings. You know, we don't want to forget about all the guests that we have that are celebrating our day right along with us. So I'm going to share a little project that you can give to them as a little favor and a little thank you for celebrating that day with you. And then finally, we're going to head into the kitchen. It's everyone's favorite. Everyone loves chocolate, and we're going to be dipping some strawberries. So we've got a lot of projects to do, and I can't wait to get started. So we better head down the aisle and get this show started. You know, recently I had a chance to go to a bridal show with my future daughter-in-law and her mother. And while I walked around the show with a creative eye and like, oh, I could make this, and look at that color, and let's do this, let's do that, she walked around, the mother walked around with a little different perspective. In fact, she kind of had the look of sticker shock. And rightly so, because some of the things were extravagantly priced. And that's the reason why I wanted to do this wedding show, because you don't have to give up a beautiful, elegant wedding simply because you can't afford a $50,000 wedding. The designs that you're going to see today are easy on the pocketbook. They're easy to make, but they do not lack in elegance. So the first project we're going to make is a guest table ensemble. This is with the guest in mind. It's a take on the traditional guest book where they make keepsake cards, something that the bride and groom can cherish forever. And let's head to the studio and I'll show you how to make it. The first project we're going to do is make the keepsake tag, and this is a tag for your guest to sign. So first let me show you what it looks like. So this is a sample of what we're going to be making today. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a decorative edge along the bottom of our manila tag. So I'm just going to put that into the punch, press it down. There we go. Okay, so I have made the decorative edge, but I want to continue this edge on out to the edge. So what I'm going to do is you just put it back in the punch and then you line it up with the little guides on the punch on each side, and then there you go. Okay, so now we have our decorative edge made, and you can throw away and toss away this string. Maybe use it for another project. Because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to alter the color of the tag, and because cream, or this kind of yellowy cream, is really not in the color palette that I'm going to be using with my tag, I'm going to just paint a little bit of white paint over the top of it, and I'm just going to be distressing this. I'm not necessarily concerned that I'm painting the whole tag completely opaque. So I'm just going to put that underneath of it while I paint here. The only thing that you want to be concerned that you cover over is this brown part at the top. So make sure that you cover that and make that completely white, but the rest of it doesn't really matter. We're just taking some of the color away. Okay, so give it a few strokes up and down and side to side. I actually already have one that is finished and dried, so you'll need to let that dry. The next thing you'll do is come in with your color chalks, and I'm going to be using a couple different colors. I have kind of a peachy pink color here, so just tap along the outside and give it a little bit of color. You can do this as much or as little as you want. Something like that. And I can even go back in with a secondary color, that maybe this darker pink at the bottom, and give it a little extra touch. And that's always real pretty too. I love that. A little bit more subtle there. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw in, again we're making this little cherry blossom figure right here. So I'm going to draw in, and if you're a little nervous about drawing, that's even better, because you kind of want a jittery little line here, and I'm actually going to do this upside down, so who knows what it's going to turn out like, but you're just going to draw a line with a little Sharpie marker and a little Y at the top, and maybe a little branch with a little Y. There's a little branch, something like this. All right, really simple, really jittery, doesn't have to be perfect. And then you're going to come back with your chalk ink again, and this time a dauber. You could use, I'm using a sponge dauber, but you can use a Q-tip. You can also use paint if you don't have this, and I'm just daubing on some little hints of cherry blossoms. Isn't that fun? And then I'm going to come back in with a second color that's just a little bit darker. This one on top is a little darker. And you'll have to excuse me because I get really messy when I work. I really get into my work. Okay, now you don't want to cover over too much of the area over here, because you want to allow the guests to have a place to write their little keepsake sentiment or note or whatever it is they're going to write there. So now we're going to glitz it up just a little bit, and we're going to come in with our glitter glue. And I'm just going to put a couple little daubs here and here. This is dimensional glitter glue, so if you want dimension, you can certainly leave that there. I'm really not as interested in the dimension as I am just kind of the blingy effect. So I'm going to put just a little bit, a few little dots on around the edges. And I'm also going to highlight this with some glitter, some extra glitter. This just really kind of lifts it off the page for me. I'll come in and just sprinkle a little mist of glitter there. It's really pretty. We're almost finished. Now all we have left to do is to glue this on to our backing piece of paper. So let me grab my tacky glue here. And make sure you get your edges good and stuck down there. And then you're just going to line this up with the top. And as I said before, I made this a little bit longer than the tag itself, because I wanted it to have a little bit of an outline. So I'm going to trim this off with a pair of scissors. And I really don't care for the blunt corners, so I'm just going to nip off the blunt corners, or these sharp corners. Now the only thing we have left to do is to allow this to dry, and also to put on our little piece of ribbon, which I had hanging out here. Here it is. This is just about a 3-inch piece of ribbon, and you can see I've cut it parallel, but I've cut it diagonal. I'm just going to fold it in half. And I bet I have to go back here and grab a stapler. I do. Thought I had that handy. Come here. And you've got your cute little tag. Now this is just the first project in a whole ensemble for your guest tables. So stay tuned for the next project. So those tags can be paired with the photos of your guests and then placed into the photo album so that you have a nice keepsake of your special wedding day. The next project we're going to work on is the Keepsake Pin, something so that they can write with. And we're going to do that while my hands are all messy. So here's what you're going to need to get started. To create your flower pin that goes with your keepsake cards, what you're going to need is a bush of flowers, a flower of your choice, color of your choice. You're going to need Bic round stick ink pens. I have some wire cutters. I also have a votive filled with glass marbles, and then I have some floral tape. So let's set the floral tape and the pin aside just for a second, and we're going to remove the flowers from our stem. You might have seen me do this in a project before, because I have, and I love this project. The only thing different with this one, we're actually going to keep the leaves on this particular stem so that it looks a little more natural, and we're going to push those up a little bit closer to the flower. So instead of putting the stem directly onto the pin, I can find my place where I've used my floral tape here. There we go. Instead of applying it to the pin and then wrapping it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start wrapping it here at the very top of the flower first, right off of the stem. And working with floral tape, of course, you stretch it and wrap, and that activates the adhesive in the floral tape. So I'm actually just anchoring the floral tape on right now, wrapping it several times around the stem, and now I'm going to put it right up next to my ink pen, and I'm going to wrap my ink pen around it. So let's give it a couple wraps, and that kind of secures it. It's kind of a little hassle to leave the leaves on, but it looks really good when it's finished. So, and the nice thing about this is that you can start and stop this wrap at any time. So you just stretch it, and then you just wrap it on itself. And so then I can position the leaves where I want, and I can come back in and continue to wrap. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to wrap all the way down to the bottom of the stem. And you can do one of these for a single stem flower in a vase, or you can do several of them if you want several people to be signing the keepsake cards at the same time. This is up to you and your preference. Now we're down at the bottom, let's trim this up. And now we're going to fill in this area here where it's blank, so let's just grab a little bit of the tape because we don't need a whole lot. Simple project, big effect. Love this project. So cool. The other thing you can do is you can actually add a little bit of pizzazz to this by coming back in and wrapping additional flowers, making, well, kind of like a boutonniere on a pin. That's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take just this little bunch of white flowers here and just wrap those on. So cool. Such a cool project. And now you have a really cool vase for your keepsake pins. So now we have our keepsake tags, we have our keepsake pins. Now let's tie that all together and create the coordinating keepsake box. This is just a really simple and quick, easy project to do to give yourself a little keepsake box to go with the cards that you have already gathered from the different guests. So I've already started with a little bit of glue on top. This is an acrylic box, and I have some tacky glue, and you see that I've already attached one of the little bits of berries. I'm going to put the other one over here on this side. And I'm going to add a little more tacky glue because now I'm going to add a leaf from the same bush that we used for our pins. Put a leaf there. One more glue. The only difference with this one here is after you pull the flower off of the bush there, you've got this little end right here that you need to just snip off with a pair of scissors. And I've already done that to this one here. So fluff it up a little bit, put it on. Everything's coming along really nicely. This entire project is less than $15 to make. And feel free to make this project your own and make it fit your color scheme by changing the flowers, the colors. It's a very versatile project. Now while we're thinking of tablescapes, let's think of centerpieces. And of course at that show I saw big, beautiful, extravagant centerpieces. But remember the phrase, less is more? Doesn't mean that just because you have a simple centerpiece, you're giving up elegance. As you're going to see in this next project, we're going to head back to the studio and I'm going to show you how to create a Magnolia floral centerpiece. So this is a super quick, super easy project to make, and what you're going to need is some tacky glue. You'll also need a glass votive jar with a votive candle. You'll need your flower stems, and you'll want approximately 6 of these, and you can just pop these right off of the bush. Also, you'll need some glass marbles, and then underneath here I have a paper doily, so if you have a crocheted doily, by all means you can use that as well. Before we actually go in and make the project, what I want to show you and talk about a little bit is choosing your flowers. Now, you don't have to go out and break the bank with these flowers. You can actually just purchase the flowers at the dollar store. Sometimes has some really good deals on flowers. But what you want to look for is a flower that holds its shape, just like you see here in my hand. You don't see any petals falling down. You also don't see any frayed edges. And if there are just a couple frayed edges, that's okay. But you want to look for flowers that have nice clean edges. You can snip off any extra little frayed edges and kind of clean them up a bit. Also, the one thing about working with flowers that are a little bit less expensive is that they tend to kind of bunch all up together. So you need to spread them out, and you just twist them and just kind of work with them to make them look more natural. Okay, pretty simple, pretty easy, all right? Now you're going to come in with your glass votive, and actually we're going to glue these onto the sides of our glass votive. So I've already started this one here, and you can see that I've just glued the flowers around. So we need to add our last 2 right here. So what you're going to do, come in with a really good dab of the tacky glue. And the nice thing about this tacky glue is that it does dry clear. And just press those down. I actually let it sit on the table, and I do let it dry overnight. That way you don't have to worry about your petals falling down. And sometimes I even tack the petals onto each other. So I'll actually tack, a couple of petals together just with a little dab of the glue. All right, so you're going to do that all the way around. You're going to let this dry. Now, to make your centerpiece, the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to, and it's going to make noise, you're going to put your glass marbles in the bottom here. Add your candle. You've got a decorative centerpiece. Let me show you what this looks like all finished. Don't forget to check out what's available in your local dollar stores. I think you'll be amazed at the variety of florals they have, the wedding favors, the reception decor. It's a great resource for you. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Have you heard that phrase? That's a phrase that many brides hold near and dear to their heart, and I'm kind of a sentimental girl like that too. I love to create, especially when memories are involved. And I went for this next project and dug into my stash of vintage pearls to create a pair of very simple and elegant dangle dropped earrings. Gives you just enough bling and sparkle, helps to keep those loved ones near and dear to your heart, and we're creating with something old to make something new. So here are the tools that you're going to need. You're going to need some wire cutters. In the center here, I have a pair of just regular pliers, and then I have a pair of round nose pliers over here. And you're going to notice that my tools are really well loved. So just set those off to the side. You're also going to need a spool of 24 gauge silver non-tarnished wire. And then you can use beads of your choice, but I have chosen to use a crystal faceted teardrop bead. This one's slightly pink. I have a silver bead cap. Here's my vintage pearl. Then I have a silver spacer bead, and then I have a little Swarovski crystal right here that's about 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters big. So I'm going to work directly off of the spool to put my wire onto my teardrop bead, and you're going to thread it side to side just like this. Leave about 3/4 of an inch to an inch tail, and then bend that tail back up to the top again and pinch those together just like you see here. Next, you're going to take that tail. You might need the help of your regular pliers, so bend that around. You do want this kind of neat because it does make a difference. Just a couple of times. You don't have to bend the entire length of the tail, but you do need that length of a tail because it makes it easier to make it nice and pretty. And then just trim that off and press that back down. Okay. Adjust that so that it's right up at the top. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of finger measure 1 inch, 2 inches, and snip this off of the spool. You can set the spool off. So we're ready to start threading our beads to create the dangle. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to thread on this bead cap, press it right down over the top of the teardrop bead. The next bead is the pearl, followed by the silver spacer, and then the crystal. So there's your dangle. Now we need to create the loop in the top. So I'm going to do that by clamping the wire with my round nose pliers, and then I'm going to bend the end of the wire around the end of the pliers, and then I'm going to loop it around to secure. Okay, and I'll adjust that loop so it stands up nice and tall, and trim this off. So if you have any rough edges, you can press that in there just like that with your pliers. Now you're going to attach this loop to the loop onto an ear wire that I've already made here. It's pretty simple. So let me show you what these look like all finished. You know, it's been a while since I've been able to see my grandmas, and so when I can create with something that reminds me of them, that's really special. That keeps them close to my heart. And it also makes me feel like I'm sharing that moment with them. I'm sure that your weddings are going to include your loved ones as well. And the next project is designed so that they can take a little bit of that special day home with them. It's a little button embellished candle favor. So I bought this little grouping of candles, 3 for $1 at the dollar store. And this is the one I already did. It's just so cute. I just love it. And they're just the perfect size for little candle favors. So, especially if you have just a little bit of ribbon laying around, what you're going to do is you're going to obviously measure and make sure that this goes completely around your little votive, and you're going to glue it on a little bit of tacky glue. And I'm actually using this ribbon from another project that I had left over. So glue it till the ends meet, just like that. Okay. The next thing is to get an old button, or you can actually buy these types of buttons in a big container or a big tube, pretty reasonable for a few dollars. And I have a little bit of rope here that I've threaded through the button. Now here's a really good little secret. If the end of your little rope frays, just go in with a little bit of tacky glue and twist that together, and that way that'll seal it off and make it a lot easier to thread. So it's obviously going through the front, around the back, and then back through the front. So I have these little tails, and I'm going to glue the back side to the area where I just had all the tacky glue, where I glued the ribbon on the front. Pretty simple. And then I'm just going to tie this into a bow. They say less is more, and I think in this case, they're probably right. Let it dry, you cut some great little favors. What an adorable little project. Again, check out the dollar store. I've got these 3 for $1 at the dollar store. They are so simple to make, and it's amazing what a little ribbon and a little button can do. You can even add a little coiled wire to the top and stick that right down into the wax, put their name into it, and then it doubles as a place card setting that they can take home with them. It's a great project, and you can tell my mind is spinning, so it's so hard to limit what I can share with you in the time that we have. Well, let's turn to the reception and think of a simple way to entertain our guests. And what better way to entertain them than with food and chocolate? In fact, do it yourself chocolate covered strawberries. Is your mouth watering yet? Mine is. So let's head over to the kitchen and dip a few. 100. To create your chocolate covered strawberries, you'll need chocolate almond bark. We also have vanilla for accents. 2 tablespoons of shortening. Strawberries, make sure they're fresh and cleaned and dried. Also some cupcake cups. Okay, what you're going to want to do is boil a little bit of water in a double boiler, and that's what I have here. It's not a true double boiler, it's actually just a pot with some water in it, and this is a stainless steel bowl that's down inside. This is very important so that you don't burn your chocolate. What I do is I put my chocolate in the microwave for about 20 seconds, and I melt it down because it comes in these really thick chunks like this one here. And that way it just makes it a little bit easier to melt, and it doesn't take quite so long. I have my heat set on low to medium low. This is kind of a patience process. It's really easy to do, but it does require a little bit of patience. And now what I'm doing is I'm adding some shortening. Turn my heat up just a little bit. The shortening is about 2 tablespoons, and it's really important that you put the shortening in there because that's what keeps this all creamy and helps us to keep dipping, and so that it doesn't get all clumpy. And you're going to want to melt this completely down until it's nice and smooth. So I removed my double boiler from the heat source, and you can see that my chocolate is really good and melted. It's very creamy and it flows really nice. Now you're just going to grab your strawberry by the stem, by the green stem, and just dip it and swirl it around. You can also let a little bit of that excess chocolate drip off, and then just put them on a pan that I've covered in foil, because this pan will actually need to go into the freezer. We're going to cool the chocolate down, and then we're going to come back in and embellish. Our strawberries have come out of the freezer after being in there for just about 10 minutes, and I've done the exact same thing to the vanilla almond bark. It's just a mixture of the chocolate, a little bit of shortening. It's got a really good consistency, like you can see here. I'm just going to take a little bit on my spoon, and I'm going to drizzle it over the top. Because the chocolate's so cold, it doesn't take it any time for the little white accents to set up. Let me grab my little cupcake cups here, and we'll set each in a cupcake cup. And now they're ready for you to enjoy. Chocolate. Everyone loves chocolate, and it's such a hit no matter what you're celebrating. Did you know they were that easy to make? I've shown you how to create an elegant table ensemble, beautiful Magnolia centerpieces, a super simple yet elegant candle favor, delicate dropped earrings, and we've even dipped strawberries today. There's so much more that I want to share with you, that I'm actually going to host a very special 1-hour event coming up in May, and you can get all the details about that at lindapetersonlive.com. I hope that I was able to inspire you to create your own beautiful wedding decor, have a wonderful wedding day, and that your creative juices are flowing now. Feel free to alter any of these projects that you've seen to match your wedding colors, your wedding decor, and when you do, email me pictures of your very special wedding day. I would love to see that. You can do that right through my website, lindapetersonlive.com. That's going to wrap up the show today. Thank you for watching with me. I'm Linda Peterson. Now I want you to get up, grab the tacky glue, grab your craft supplies, and keep living the creative life. I'll see you next time.